Well, for more on one of America's longest wars, we're joined by writer and analyst Ahmad Shuja. He has lived and worked in Kabul. Welcome back to the broadcast.
Good to be back, thank you.
So we just heard what President Trump outlined and what Roe said in the report, but tell us in your estimation, why is the U.S. still in Afghanistan?
The justification that we've heard in the recent speech by President Trump, in which he outlined his plans for Afghanistan, are all national security related justifications. And some of that is actually reflective of what is happening on the ground, because Daesh is now, or elements calling themselves Daesh, are present in areas that are where they're actually contesting the Taliban. And they're attacking Afghan religious festivals, religious sites, and they're closing down schools, and they're causing a massive internal displacement. And so a lot of the rationale from the American perspective is that they're going there to fight these elements that could conceivably then at some point, like Al-Qaeda did, be attacking the American homeland.
So you had the largest ever Al-Qaeda training camp there in 2015, ISIL in the eastern part of the area. The Taliban is in full force. You have to question whether the U.S. strategy is working. I
think it's the right question, particularly when you're actually sending thousands of more troops into Afghanistan. But it's also true that the Taliban are a human organization for all of their problems. They're actually facing the brunt of the war that's been grinding. They're actually seeing a lot of their operatives being killed, their operational networks are being damaged, and their leaders being killed left, right, and center in Pakistan and Afghanistan and other places. And so they're paying a very heavy cost as well. The Afghan Army and the Afghan security forces are paying a heavy cost as well. And so the only factor that could potentially tip over the balance of these scales is increased aid to the Afghan security forces, but also a diplomatic push involving the neighboring countries, including Russia and Pakistan, China and India, to create the diplomatic conditions conducive for a potential settlement.
And that is of real concern, especially with U.S. relations right now going on with Iran.
The expected decertification of the nuclear agreement between Iran and the U.S. is part of a multi-layered relationship between the two countries, and it could actually manifest itself in how Iran would then deal with Afghanistan in the future.
Well, we have to mention, Ahmad, Afghanistan's drug trade and the opium harvest, and this is in fact fueling aid to the Taliban. How do you beat them if the drug trade is in full force?
Absolutely, and the drug trade, the production of drug is happening in Afghanistan, but it's actually going through conduits that are in Iran, that are in Pakistan, that are in Turkey, and so it's a transnational, multinational effort, and it ends up in consumers in Europe and the U.S. and other places in the world. And so it is an issue that Afghanistan alone cannot tackle, that the U.S. alone cannot tackle, for which you actually need a broader global effort.
When this all began, the U.S. had its support of many countries, and now how is it faring?
We've heard reports that the NATO alliance with which the U.S. went to war in Afghanistan in 2001 has been, they need some convincing now, especially after Trump's speech a few weeks ago to send more troops. The NATO countries need more convincing to send more troops, because they have to go back to their own home countries and to their own capitals and convince their own people as to why they should be sending more troops at a time when there's more Afghan refugees since 2001 coming to their doorsteps looking for protection, given that they've actually been in Afghanistan for so many years and providing aid and military necessity. So yes, there is a wavering of support in the NATO countries, which